Hi, my name is Lily, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my 2021 reading stats and reflections. So in 2021 I read 116 books and that does include some DNFs where I read enough that I decided to count them. Out of those books, 28 were graphic novels, which is great. I'm so happy I've been reading more graphic novels lately and that makes me super happy. So I'm scooching over to the side so I can put some graphs up next to me for you to look at because I don't want to just talk you through it. But first of all, I read kind of weirdly throughout the year. You can see how it goes up and down and then back up again, and you can kind of track how my reading mood was. March, August, October and December are kind of equal once you take into consideration DNFs. You can see I really dipped down in like June, July and September. I honestly think that like June and July I just was a bit stressed, and in September it was my birthday so I was just really busy and wasn't reading as much. But I find it really interesting. You can see it steadily tracking up and back down again. I thought it'd be a bit more jumpy than it is. But yeah, you can see as well towards the end it was gradually ticking its way upwards. So I think it's going to stay pretty consistently high, I hope. When you compare that to the pages read per month, it does match up pretty well. So I was reading roughly the same amount of pages. There were some months that do look a bit lower, like February and April. But in general, it was pretty good, and obviously March, it just looks way higher than all the others. I did find it really entertaining that for like 4 or 5 months I basically read almost exactly 2,800 pages. That seems to be a pretty safe and sweet spot for my reading, but then if I read more I just kind of get a bit erratic. But yeah, I found that really interesting. I'd never really tracked that before, so I was kind of seeing that happening month to month and was like, oh, that's weird, but I kind of like it. But in total I read 37,653 pages in 2021. So as you can see, my reading format was pretty evenly split between the different types. You had about 50% were ebooks, audiobooks and mixed media, with almost 50% then made up with hardbacks and paperbacks. My favourite format is actually to read hardbacks, but it is my smallest because hardbacks are expensive, so I didn't have as many to read. Ebooks will mostly come from when I hyperfixated on particular Kindle Unlimited authors, and so I don't actually read ebooks that much unless it is Kindle Unlimited. Audiobooks though, totally legit. I do listen to a lot of audiobooks, and even so far in 2022 I've listened to more audiobooks than anything else already. So my genre pie chart is a bit chaotic. I think I read across about 16 different genres, and when I started it was very heavily fantasy, but towards the end of the year I really got into romance, and as you can see that took up a huge portion of the pie chart by the end of the year. So just over a quarter of my books were romances and about a third were fantasy. And what's quite surprising is sci-fi is my favourite, but I actually only read 12 sci-fi books this year. So that says a lot in that I love the sci-fi genre, especially space operas. That is my favourite, but I am very picky about what I read because I love that genre so much. I don't want to read trash. So that's kind of why that is. And also because I don't actually follow a lot of people who read a lot of sci-fi. So I don't get a lot of recommendations based on things I would actually read in sci-fi. But yeah, if you have really good sci-fi recommendations that are either space opera style or kind of humorous sci-fi in the vein of The Martian or Project Hail Mary, let me know in the comments. So if you look at my star ratings chart, almost 2/3 of the books that I read were either 4 or 5 stars, which is pretty impressive. And yes, over a third of them were 5 stars. I do rate fairly generously, but also I am just really selective about what I read, and I do DNF a lot if I need to. So I do give out 5 stars if I loved a book, and I try to make sure that I'm reading books that I know I'm going to really love. I didn't have any 1-star reads this year because I did DNF if I thought it was going to be a 1-star read, and 2-star reads was a pretty small chunk, and those mostly were DNFs or books that I read that were like so bad they were entertaining, and a lot less 3-star reads this year than previous years, which is great because I find 3 stars the most frustrating because they were almost good enough but they were still really disappointing. I think my age category breakdown also really shows you this is the year that I got into romances, because when I started it was almost entirely young adult and adult has been chipping away at it, and so now it's pretty much even between young adult and adult, with only a tiny portion being made up with new adult and middle grade. So yeah, I definitely started off by reading YA fantasy and migrating to adult romance. And when we look at the pie chart that breaks down how I got the books, about half the books I didn't actually pay for. They were either borrowed via the library, Kindle Unlimited, Scribd, something like that, or they were PR copies. And then there's still quite a few that were either gifted or thrifted, so the amount of books I read that I actually had paid for myself is a pretty small proportion comparatively, and I definitely would have paid full price for most of those books. So as much as it sounds like I spend a lot of money on my hobby of reading, I don't. I as you can see in this breakdown, and that's kind of why I can afford to have as many books as I do, and I'm very appreciative of all the other sources I get books from that aren't just me purchasing them myself. But yeah, I thought that was a really interesting breakdown. I didn't realise how many books I borrowed from like Scribd and Kindle Unlimited and the library compared to how many books I read new, and it does explain why my physical TBR doesn't decrease as much as it should year on year. But really unsurprisingly, only 10% of my reads this year were rereads, and that's because I just don't like doing rereads that much. I just feel really uncomfortable rereading a physical book when I could be reading a new physical book. I tend to reread more by audiobook, and I generally do it either if it's a book I find super comforting that will help me fall asleep, or if it's a book I need to reread so I can read the rest of a series. And the final stat I want to show you is series versus standalone. About 60% are series and about 40% are standalones, and honestly this just means I started a lot of series and didn't finish them this year, which is a real problem that I have, and I'm going to try and work on that in 2022. I'm actually tracking in 2022 whether it's a first in a series continuation, last in a series, or standalone, so that I can track how many series I'm actually starting and finishing. So yeah. And those are all the stats I want to show you. I did track diversity statistics for myself, like the gender of the author, whether the author was a person of colour, disability rep, all of those things, but I didn't want to talk to you about them in this video because I didn't want it to become about me trying to prove how diverse my reading is, or to try and show off my stats, or to try and shame me or other people into reading more. I track those for my own awareness, so I don't feel like I should be bragging or being harsh on myself either way about those stats. So I won't be showing you them, but I do track them. I encourage you to track those for yourself as well, so that you can see how your reading matches to what you think it does, because I definitely read more diversely in some areas than I thought I did and less in others, so it's something that I find really interesting to track, and I'm actually tracking it in more detail in 2022. So like I said, my 2022 tracker is way more detailed. That was the Core Pile tracker with some slight edits in 2021, whereas the 2022 spreadsheet is the Core Pile tracker with a lot of edits from me. I've added in maps to track the author's country of origin and the location of the book, so like the main setting if it's set in the real world. I'm tracking how many audiobook hours I listen to. I'm also doing averages, like the average number of pages per book, the longest book I'm reading this year, the average length of the audiobooks I'm reading, how many days it takes me to listen to these books or read these books. It's so interesting. I love every time I add a book in, seeing those averages change. I love seeing all the other charts changing. It's so interesting and I love it so much. But yeah, honestly, I could nerd out about how I've really gone into detail in my 2022 spreadsheet for ages, and I do it regularly to my boyfriend. Like I'll text him being like, I've made another edit to that spreadsheet, I've made it cooler. And he's just like, okay, cool, babe. So I just love it. I love tracking the stats. And I'm also using this lovely little reading tracker from Fairy Loot. I read From Blood and Ash in December and hated it, but this reading tracker is so pretty I don't even care. So yeah, I'm using both. I like using the reading tracker because it gives me an opportunity to stop and think and write down my thoughts, and then my reading tracker spreadsheet lets me calculate all the stats. So yeah, it's great. So this is a bit of a whistle-stop tour of my stats for 2021. I hope you found it interesting, and let me know how your reading went in 2021, how many books you read, what some of your favourites were, and any kind of stats you think I'd find interesting about it. I love hearing these things. I love watching people's stats videos. So yeah, that is it from me. If you like this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to see more content from me. All of my social media links are down in the description below. If you want to leave me a comment to let me know you are here, leave me one of those like zigzaggy chart emojis in the comments, if you know what I mean. Hopefully you know what I mean. But yes, that is it. So thank you for watching. Bye.